Yeah, this is, well, it's Kotaku, taking a note from the EA executive who notoriously lied because she's paid to defend the greed of a multi-billion-dollar corporation that she works for. Kotaku is doing it maybe for clicks, maybe they like licking the boot of video game executives, I really don't know. But you can call loot boxes anything you want, surprise mechanics, fun presents, whatever, but at the end of the day, it's still a virtual slot machine that's been directly linked in numerous studies to gambling. In other news, Soulja Boy is back and preparing for round 2 of selling a scam console, which will most likely attract the attention of Sony and Nintendo's lawyers who are just frothing from their mouths with excitement. Say what you want, but the fact that a rapper whose popularity peaked over a decade ago is able to convince people into spending hundreds of dollars on hardware that it looks like it was made by an 8-year-old for a class project is beyond me, but his their own, I suppose. Dying Light 2 is quite the highly anticipated game, and in recent months, a series of exposés have made clear that all is not well at developer Techland. They responded in a big way this week, first by denying the label some have given, which is that the game is in development hell. Techland says that they just announced it too early. In an update video, Techland ignored the accusations and simply showed some new gameplay and teased a 2021 release date. I guess later this year we'll find out if this is the latest AAA disaster or dumpster fire, or hopefully a worthwhile experience that lives up to the high expectations that were set with the first trailers and gameplay a few years ago. Ubisoft is under fire for its latest single-player monetization scheme with Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Recently, there's been outrage with Ubisoft basically selling reskinned outfits for over $15 in packages, and additionally the microtransaction store featuring more outfits than the actual bloody game. Now, with the introduction of a highly anticipated feature, Transmog, Ubisoft ruined it by monetizing it. In Odyssey it was free, and Valhalla it cost 50 silver per item. As is the excuse many use, you can always grind it out, unless you already looted most of the map and used the silver, then you're forced into buying silver in Ubisoft's microtransaction store. Create a problem, sell the solution. Love how blatant this industry is with its greed, and you better believe it's only going to get worse with time. Marvel's Avengers just released its latest huge update, bringing a bunch of new content and more. With such a high profile and well-funded live service, you'd expect this to be thriving, but unfortunately, this game is having as much success as the 2-week-old half-eaten salad that's sitting in the bottom of my fridge. On Steam charts, the game's been averaging a few hundred players at most. With the new update, it peaked at just over 2,000 players. On Microsoft platforms, the game's not even in the top 50 most played games. It can be found under the Action and Adventure tab as the 44th most played game, trailing behind titles like Arkham Knight and Assassin's Creed Origins. Still though, Crystal Dynamics has no interest in going free to play, saying for us, the model we have is the model we stick with. Look, you buy in once, you get into our theme park as it were, and look at all these rides that you can take, and all the rides are part of that, and we're continually adding more content at no additional cost. The issue is the theme park is repetitive and boring. It's like going to a water park with no water. The base story campaign was alright, but there's nothing original or unique about this game that makes me want to spend time in it. Also doesn't help how complicated the simplest things have become for like accessing your PS4 save file on a PS5. This has to be as mismanaged as it gets. And as I've said before, I imagine they would have had a lot more success had they just not jumped on the stupid live service bandwagon. Marvel's Spider-Man and the Arkham games proved if you make a great single-player story-focused game about a superhero or superheroes, you can have great success. Anyway, I still think free-to-play is coming, and/or maybe a sad death with Square Enix pulling the plug like EA did recently with BioWare's Anthem. Still, so depressing that Deus Ex was killed for this nonsense. Speaking of superhero games, the latest delay has hit Gotham Knights, which has been moved to 2022. The effects of the pandemic continue to strike. This is going to continue to be the story in all facets of entertainment throughout this year. We received news on the first real big Cyberpunk 2077 update, and it looks like CDPR is addressing design flaws, and they are listening. With a fun in-universe spin on things, CDPR revealed that the NCPD will now spawn further away when a crime is committed, and an added drone unit recon will create the feeling of the police assessing the situation. Driving mechanics also received an upgrade, controlling better now. A new unstuck feature will allow you to get vehicles out of ditches and other unfortunate positions in which the vehicle can't get out of. Lastly, players will now have more control over keyboard bindings related to simple movement. That includes a rework of the game's dodge action. Patch notes will also come very soon, detailing the many other fixes made to the game. I mean, this is a start. I don't have anything critical to say about this. The game should not have released in December. It probably needed a 2022 release date, as devs have indicated. Now, throughout 2021, many more of these updates which address design flaws will be needed. The police system is kinda better, but the problem is it needs more of an overhaul. This feels like a band-aid. Other issues with the game that remain include NPC AI needing a complete overhaul, vehicle AI needing to be added. There's a lack of interactivity in Night City, a lack of in-game customization and mini-games, just a lot of work to be done. But this is, again, a start. An encouraging first step, but many more needed to come. Next though, this is quite the story, as many gaming websites and journalists slandered a Harry Potter RPG developer for having different opinions or views. Nothing harmful or insane, just different. Troy Levitt announced earlier this month that he was resigning. Gaming websites then celebrated as they canceled a man for years-old videos of his which were pretty darn tame in my opinion. Still though, gaming sites have called him alt-right, with absolutely no proof of the claim, with Levitt actually having beliefs which conflict with that defamatory claim. Regardless, Levitt clarified recently he didn't leave Hogwarts Legacy due to the outrage mob. He was always leaving. In a video on his YouTube channel, which was actually directed at his fellow developers, he stated family issues that had already pulled him off the project last year was why he resigned and decided to retire. However, he did admit his timeline was moved up thanks to the attack hit pieces, but he made sure to note nobody at Warner Brothers or Avalanche Studios pressured him. Levitt's video also was very calculated and broke down the disgusting treatment that he received from the media. Look, I think it's fucking atrocious how this man was treated. His name stomped on because he doesn't have super progressive beliefs. That's it. I think it's even more disgusting how so many gaming journalists and YouTubers remain quiet about this attack. This has to stop. What's most notable about this situation is not one Hogwarts Legacy developer slammed Levitt privately or publicly, not one. Still though, gaming outlets ran with stories outraged and concerned that his beliefs would negatively impact Hogwarts Legacy. Anyway, this is a story that has not received the outrage that it truly deserves for how Levitt was treated. I just feel sorry for the guy, as he's going through personal issues and then some lazy turds online created a toxic campaign to ruin him based on almost nothing. But today we have a lot of gaming news to break down, and you probably should consider subscribing, turning notifications on, liking the video, and leaving a comment below with your thoughts. If you really enjoy the content, consider supporting my Patreon and directly financially helping out the channel. One of the big gaming stories of the last couple of months, going back to when the deal was announced in September that Microsoft was buying Bethesda, was the question of exclusivity. And we finally got some clarity on that recently when it was officially, well, the deal's done. Microsoft has now purchased Bethesda, and Bethesda is now part of the Xbox family. And during a roundtable presentation, we got some comments coming from Xbox head Phil Spencer on what this exclusivity will look like. And yes, there will be some exclusivity coming. And this is the specific quote which a lot of people have been talking about. He said, "If you're an Xbox customer, this is about delivering great exclusive games for you on platforms where Game Pass exists." While that is still kind of vague, I think it gives a great idea of what to expect moving forward. And it's going to be that Game Pass is the focus, which isn't really surprising. This is what Microsoft has been invested in for quite some time. This is what they view as the future of the video game industry. This is why Phil Spencer in recent years has said that he's not too much looking at PlayStation or Nintendo as competition, as he feels like the streaming wars is going to be coming to the video game industry very, very soon. And I definitely think that that's probably the path forward. That's why he's trying to bolster up their lineup. And ultimately, I think that one of the big things that Xbox wants, and something that they're going to be pushing for and putting pressure on Sony for, is to get Game Pass on the PlayStation Store, the PlayStation platform. This is something that I don't think Sony will ever go for, but I do think that Xbox may be angling for that for games like Starfield, The Elder Scrolls 6, Wolfenstein 3, and maybe the next Doom installment. That's definitely what I think that Xbox wants to achieve long term. Will that ever happen? I highly doubt it, but I'm certain that Phil Spencer would love to have that Game Pass service just continuing to get bigger, because let's be honest, PlayStation attracts a lot of gamers, and a lot of gamers that I'm sure Xbox would like to monetize, but I surely don't think that they have any plans to buy an Xbox console anytime soon. A lot of loyal PlayStation gamers. But hey, some of these future potential Xbox Game Pass exclusives may be very attractive to those gamers, especially a game like The Elder Scrolls 6. Regardless, I don't think that exclusivity is just going to be permanent. So games like maybe The Elder Scrolls 6, I do think that there is going to be a level of exclusivity, but I think we're going to be seeing more timed exclusives going on. Obviously, that's not going to be the case with every single title, but I do think some of those big releases, maybe a year or two on the Xbox ecosystem, and then maybe a PlayStation release. That's something that I think could still happen, but hey, Xbox is being very, very vague for a reason, because nothing is permanent, and this all really depends on the future growth of Game Pass, which continues to expand and get better every single day. Now, that obviously was not the only highlight to come from this roundtable presentation, because some Bethesda folks were there, such as Bethesda's VP of Marketing Pete Hines and Todd Howard. And it was very interesting when Todd Howard actually discussed Fallout 76, and he revealed some interesting insight into what happened around launch and how Xbox actually helped them navigate through that very rough window.
76, while you mention it, is something where it's another sort of point in my mind with our relationship where when that game launched, you know, the litany of issues we had, and we let a lot of people down, and well, there was very little we didn't screw up, honestly. And one of the people that I called was Phil. And I said, hey, you know, there's so many things we're dealing with, what advice do you have? And he put me in touch with some people at Xbox who were able to look at all of the games in the system and what was important and what wasn't important to the other games that made it for the long haul. And that kind of advice really, really helped us.
I think you could certainly argue the case that Fallout 76, the first year or two, was just an abomination. Every week there was a new headline, a new disaster that we were talking about. Bethesda was unprepared. They released an unfinished, overly monetized disaster of a live service experience that a lot of people did not want. And I still feel like Bethesda really misfired with the direction that they're going for with this title, which ultimately it was them being lazy, trying to monetize the Fallout IP by spending as little as much as possible. But hey, at the end of the day, they had to do what everybody thought that they should have done in the first place, which was make it more like Fallout 4, just like Fallout 4 with co-op, and that's kind of what it's angled at nowadays with the expansions of Wastelanders and Steel Dawn. But hey, yeah, Fallout 76, actually, I think it has more active players than a game like Cyberpunk 2077. There's a loyal Fallout following that really does enjoy that experience, but it still is a very messy experience, one that has a very poor endgame. There's a lot of issues with Fallout 76 that still are not being addressed as of today, and I really do hope they scale back on some of this over-monetization. Hopefully Microsoft can step in, because I think that's been one of the big problems with Bethesda experiences the last couple of years. Their focus on monetizing all of these games. It's not just limited to Bethesda game studios, because this has also been a problem with, well, let's just bring up Machine Games' abomination of Wolfenstein Youngblood. That's not the direction people wanted them to be going in. That's why I really do feel optimistic about Microsoft now having ownership over Bethesda, because I felt that under ZeniMax management they were going in the wrong direction fast. So once again, it is great that Todd Howard is acknowledging the mess that was Fallout 76, but actions speak louder than words, and there's going to be a lot of attention and a lot of pressure on Starfield, because Bethesda has just some really major design flaws which have not been addressed. These are issues that go back to really the early days, Morrowind maybe, but especially surrounding their game engine, which has always been pretty darn buggy. And I think one of the things that a lot of people are going to be hopeful with Starfield is that the game is polished, but I think there's a lot of criticisms that Bethesda has to answer, they have to address. This is a new IP. Starfield is something that doesn't have an established fan base, so they have to earn that trust and they have to earn those sales, and hopefully now that they are under Microsoft, they can take a little bit extra time to make sure the game is in a quality state. There's a lot of lessons that should be learned from Fallout 76, and that is one of them, but it's also a lesson that should have been learned a long time ago with other games in the past. Now, since we are on the subject of Bethesda and this huge deal which was just completed recently, there was some discussion about the Elder Scrolls 6 that I quickly want to go over because it's a strategy that I hope Microsoft does not take on. So a bunch of IGN employees, they had a discussion about this, and let's go over what they said. Dan Stapleton, the IGN's executive editor of reviews, he said, "I wonder what effect Bethesda and Obsidian becoming sister studios will have on Avowed. If I were Microsoft, I might consider shelving that game and putting Obsidian to work co-developing the Elder Scrolls 6 to get that game out the door in time for it to matter for the Series X generation. This is the number one thing you do not want to do. Microsoft needs to remain on the sidelines. Let these studios work their magic." And actually, I find this honestly insulting to Obsidian. They've never had this big budget to make these huge games. They've relied on Kickstarter in the past. They were really struggling as an independent studio. That is why when I see people very, very critical of a game like The Outer Worlds, I do have to remind them that's not a AAA experience. It did not have a huge budget. It was very limited. Now, one thing I do want to see Obsidian maybe do in the future if they want to, and I think they do based on a lot of the remarks that they made over the years, is a Fallout New Vegas sequel or another Fallout spin-off. That definitely seems like something that they're interested in. But Microsoft coming in and saying, hey guys, that Avowed IP, that could be the next big potential IP for Xbox, yeah, throw that to the side because we want you on the Elder Scrolls 6 to help Bethesda. That's just horrible. Anyway, Ryan McCaffrey, another IGN employee, he jumped in saying, kill Grounded and whatever the Outer Worlds team is on, merge them into one team and co-develop the Elder Scrolls 6 with Bethesda. Todd Howard executive produces, have Obsidian get the ball rolling while the Avowed team keeps going and Bethesda Game Studios finishes Starfield. This is again just pointless. If Microsoft just jumps in, they're no different than Electronic Arts and Activision, which have ruined their studios. I mean, look what has happened to BioWare for an example. If they do that to Obsidian, all those employees are just going to start departing because their creativity is not allowed, and they have to go by Microsoft's terms because of the big old IP, the Elder Scrolls 6, which maybe they're not interested in working on because they're more familiar with they want to work on the Pillars of Eternity universe. They want to work on Avowed, which has the potential to be huge. And also, Grounded has like 15 developers. It's a very small team, and I don't think that's going to be anything substantial for the Elder Scrolls 6, which regardless, it's still years away. Now, Paris, another gaming voice, he actually jumped in and had a very good opinion, the only one that seems logical here. He said, gotta push back on this one. I want to see what a fully funded and supported Obsidian can do with their own original IP, Avowed. He continues, he says, sure, I'd one day love to see an Obsidian-led Fallout New Vegas 2, but for now, let them stretch their creative legs with new ideas. Perfectly said. And then Dan Stapleton came back saying, this isn't about what we want to see happen. We'd all love to play a ton of original games. It's about what Microsoft might think is best for its business strategy as a first-party publisher. Now that it's consolidated all of these studios, Ryan McCaffrey jumps in saying, yep, we're not saying Grounded is a bad game. There is no value judgment placed on it. But Grounded can make you a few $1 million, maybe 10 million. The Elder Scrolls 6 can make you 1 billion. And another user jumps in with a perfectly said opinion saying, guys, please, that's EA, Activision logic, and I don't know why you're so excited about turning Xbox into yet another soulless money generator. And that is the big problem with these opinions right here. And I don't think that's the direction that Phil Spencer wants these studios going in. He wants them to be as creative as possible to create some amazing first-party experiences, something that Microsoft has lacked. The strategy of them interfering and trying to manage direction has not worked. And that's why the new strategy of letting these studios mostly be autonomous is key. And that's something that I hope continues to be the focus with Bethesda, Obsidian, Inxile Entertainment, and all the studios under Xbox. Next though, as we discussed earlier on in the year, Activision Blizzard and a lot of the top dogs of this AAA games industry have had record years. And specifically with Activision, we all know what that meant and we all know what that means. Lots of employers are getting fired. I don't know why that seems to be always the case. They make a ton of money and then people are losing jobs. But hey, the pandemic has really boosted this AAA games industry, especially in revenue, and what that has meant is employees are now heading to the doors. The story comes from Bloomberg, who reports Activision Blizzard fired dozens of people on Tuesday across various departments, including 50 employees who handled esports programming and other live events. The dismissals affect less than 2% of the total workforce, or fewer than 190 employees. Also among the cuts were employees at King, the maker of Candy Crush. The cuts signal that Activision plans a broader shift away from in-person events after a year of coronavirus lockdowns. Players are increasingly choosing to connect with our games digitally, and the esports team, much like traditional sports, sports, entertainment, and broadcasting industries has had to adapt its business to the impact the pandemic has had on live events, a company spokesperson said. And Bloomberg continues saying U.S. workers will receive a minimum of 90-day severance and health benefits for a year, as well as job transition support, the spokesman said. And that's actually pretty good for this industry. But this is the actual kicker, which I feel like it's kind of a slap in the face, a little bit comical, but they were also given $200 gift cards to Battle.net, the Blizzard online game service. Nothing like telling them, hey, head to the door, oh yeah, we forgot to give you your $200 gift card, thanks for working here? I don't know, that just feels a little bit like a slap in the face. But what I would actually consider a bigger slap in the face is the news that actually dropped right after this, which is the following headline: Activision Blizzard CEO to get even bigger bonuses while others get laid off. This is like a couple years ago, the same thing happened. Executives getting multi-million-dollar bonuses while employees are heading for the door. But this following story comes from Kotaku. They say Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick routinely gets millions in stock bonuses every year based on how the company is doing. Now he's set to get even more, for a total payout of nearly $200 million, according to CTW Investment Group, a union pension fund advocacy organization. And it's all thanks to a clause in his contract that was recently triggered by the company's strong stock performance throughout the pandemic. Yes, pandemic is making these billion-dollar gaming executives even more rich. As the Call of Duty maker's CEO, Kotick gets bonuses based on helping the company hit profit targets and other milestones. And because 2020 saw Activision Blizzard's stock price jumped dramatically as millions turned to games to distract themselves during the pandemic, he's on track to collect all of the incentive bonuses he missed in recent years, in addition to the tens of millions he already earns annually due to his shareholder value creation incentive clause in his contract. How insulting is that? The hundreds of employees are getting fired at Activision Blizzard, and then you see the top dogs getting a $200 million bonus. That's disgusting, I think. That shows the evilness of this gaming industry. But again, this is not where the story ends, because it looks like that 190 number is a little misleading, because yeah, a lot more people are heading for the door. The following story comes from GamesIndustry.biz, who revealed Activision Blizzard is making preparations for its fourth round of layoffs in the last half year. Sources with knowledge of the situation told them that the company is closing its publishing offices in Europe. And then the spokesman said, "We have shared plans with our teams in Europe for how we would evolve as an organization, adapting to this change to serve our players and best positioning the region for future growth. We will be taking extensive steps to support all employees and ease the transition for those of our colleagues who might be impacted by the changes, blah, 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 blah." And then GamesIndustry.biz notes, the company has entered a consultation period in preparation for layoffs at Activision Blizzard offices in Germany, France, Spain, the UK, and 2 offices in the Netherlands. Yeah, Activision Blizzard's probably got to be one of the most greediest, worst companies out there. They certainly have earned their reputation in this video game industry. They're very good at printing money, over monetizing all of their live services with just tons of microtransactions, avoiding taxes as they somehow have been able to actually get money from US taxpayers. Then on top of that, there's the executives who are getting massive paydays and employees being fired in droves. Also, can't forget what they've done to Blizzard Entertainment, destroying what it once was. Hell of a company. Now though, we move to our final story of the day, and this is an update on one that we actually talked about a week ago, and that was the huge EA Gate scandal, in which it looks like an EA employee for maybe the last couple of years, maybe it's multiple EA employees, have been selling on a black market FIFA cards, some selling for over $2,000. Absolutely insane, but when you consider the fact that these loot box odds are like 0.001%, why take the chances on spending maybe tens of thousands when you can just get the card for like $2,000? It doesn't make any sense to me, but it's a gambling mechanic. People become addicted, and Electronic Arts loves to exploit that and try to act like this is all fair. But anyway, we got a huge update recently on their investigation, and this is what EA said. Earlier this week, we were made aware of suspicious activity relating to highly rated content in FIFA Ultimate Team. We learned that items were granted to individual accounts that did not earn them through gameplay. It appears that one or more EA accounts, which were either compromised or being used inappropriately by someone within EA, directly entitled items to these individual accounts. While full investigation is underway, we wanted to share an update on the issue, including what we've learned to date, an overview of the FIFA Ultimate Team content granting process, and the actions we're taking to tackle this serious problem. The alleged behavior is unacceptable. In no way do we condone granting or purchasing player items in exchange for money. This practice runs counter to the game's competitive integrity, is a violation of EA's user agreement. I'm having trouble reading this with a straight face, and is not something we tolerate. We do not allow the trade or sale of items outside our game for many reasons, including that it would create an unequal playing field for our community. This is hard. I can't really do this, guys. I mean, when you consider the fact that somebody actually did the math, to have a dream team, something that's supposed to be possible for normal players, you need 100 million coins. So what that actually means in terms of grind, that is like 22,000 hours of gameplay, or over 900 days of gameplay, 24/7. And then on top of that, let's say you just want to spend money. Well, it looks like it costs you maybe over $100,000 or pounds to actually make this possible, to have the ultimate FIFA team, probably in around this time, because by the end of the year the cards usually become worthless, and then people move on to the next installment, and then the cards are again through the roof. EA loves this. This is a gambling mechanic, slot machines, and EA loves to say that this is all fair and whatnot, but it's not, and many countries are now cracking down on this. But moving back to EA's statement, they continue saying, our initial investigation shows questionable activity involving a very small number of accounts and items. Although it is not a large number of these allegations prove out, this activity is unacceptable. We want to thank our committed community members for bringing the issues to our attention so quickly. When our investigation is completed, we will take action against any employee found to have been engaging in this activity. Any items granted through this illicit activity will be removed from FIFA Ultimate Team ecosystem, and EA will permanently ban any player known to have acquired content through these means. And then they say, we also appreciate how extremely annoying and frustrating it is that this practice might have come from within EA. We're angry too. Oh yeah, right. EA is certainly gathering the pitchforks and ready to burn these no-good cheaters at the stake. Only one big problem is they're getting quote-unquote angry over something they themselves do. Bunch of bloody hypocrites. It's not surprising to anyone that a secret black market with EA devs making some side money from it exists. As I said before, there being corruption in the corrupt exploitative EA produced system is just not surprising to anyone. Honestly, I don't really care if anyone gets banned or fired from this. It's just nice to see EA get exposed once again for this, but I do hope more countries understand EA's running a virtual casino, one that flourishes thanks to the lack of regulation and restrictions. No reason to open a casino when you already operate arguably the biggest one in the video game industry. Anyway, what do you make of the latest things happening in gaming? Do you see a Cyberpunk 2077 or Bethesda rebound coming? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value, and make sure to follow my other social media accounts for updates on new videos. Links are always down in the description below. I'm most active on Twitter, giving opinions on news that I do not always get into video form, so do make sure to follow me over there. Also check out my Discord for all sorts of discussion on games, and again, thank you for joining. Consider subscribing for more videos like this. I'll see you later.